Okay, hi, this is Bridger. We're going to do a little update here on our winter time, or if you want to call it cool season. I think in Florida is probably more appropriate to say cool season. Not so much this year. It's been cold, colder than normal. But we'll do a little update here. It's February 16th. And this test plot is, again, we'll just reiterate a couple things. It's about 1.5 acres. It also... That's fast camera movement, sorry. This little spot over here too. What do we got planted here? We've got oats, which I don't think I've been able to see any of the oats come up. Anyway, I do have rye here. I've got rye planted in October. This is now February, and it's putting on a seed head. Okay, this test plot is, it's been planted probably 3 times with various things just to test. So I've got brand new ryegrass coming, ryegrass and rye and cereal rye and ryegrass coming up. I've got, I don't know, I planted in December. I planted a couple times, 3 times. That I can really remember. Anyway, we do got rye that's coming up, getting mature, and this is about 40 inches, 42 inches, 3.5 foot. I planted a couple times just because I had some spots out here that I had bare ground and I didn't like that. I wanted to get something growing in it, so here we've got new rye, and then new ryegrass in here, and I put more brassicas in. This is chicory right here. Got peas, Austrian winter peas. Actually, I put the same, what is it, 8 or 9 way mix that I put in October. I put it in again probably, I don't know, 3 weeks ago. So all that stuff is coming up just because I had bare ground out here and I didn't want that. Here's one of the spots that had bare ground. Had lots of residue on it, fairly good amount of residue. But I wanted living roots in the ground as much as possible. So a lot of this rye it's splotchy. It's not like a stand. You know, if I did it monoculture, we weren't trying to get like a crop of seed off of it. It's supposed to be in a mixture, so it's supposed to be kind of sparse and splotchy, whatever you want to call it. But here's some winter pea right here, a legume, and more chicory, more rye, and then this little stand over here. I still can't understand why the density right here is so good. Well, I've got leguminous mimosa trees over here, and I mean, it could be fixing nitrogen in the ground. It could be really fertile ground by here, but right here is a stand. You've got the ryegrass, you've got brassicas like tiller radish, daikon radish, purple top turnips, and then behind that is more cereal rye that I planted, and it's getting really thick. So there's probably 3 different seeding dates worth of rye here, cereal rye. This being obviously planted in October, and then this stuff behind it's only like a few weeks old. But right here, the stand is like, I mean, I want my whole place to look like this. It looks great. Good stuff. So the idea behind multiple plantings was just to get rid of this space. I don't like this right here. This stuff here, there's actually weeds coming up now because we basically are in a heat wave. Really strange year for weather. Just in January alone, I had 6 days where the temperature dipped below 30, and that's very, very unusual for our area. A normal, what you call a normal winter here is maybe 2-3 days at 30 or maybe a little bit below for the entire season, for the entire winter. And we've had a lot of cold temps for our area here in Central Florida this year. And then all of a sudden in February, we're going to have probably the better part of 3 weeks, about 3 weeks of the month of February, where the highs during the day are in the 80s. That's really crazy. So, just as an experiment yesterday, at about dark, I came out here and just in the interest of testing, here's a cereal rye plant that was headed out. It had seed heads on it, and I took the shears and I cut it by about 50%. It was probably 3.5, almost 4 foot tall, and I cut it in half. And I just wanted to see how it would respond. And overnight, that's what it did. That's crazy to me. I mean, I'm a noob when it comes to, you know, I'm finding out about all these plants and how they grow. Look at the growth on that. That's crazy. Why did I cut it in half? Well, my research and the stuff that's out there from scientists and also just regular growers, regular producers. A lot of grazing practices will be turn your livestock into your planted forages or just forages, period. Take the top third, leave the rest. Trample it in, etc., etc. Or graze half, leave half. So it's kind of a test in grazing. Last video I made was on December 28th, and I called the video Simulated Grazing Day. And this rye right here was mown down, I don't know, probably 4 inches. And it grew back and it had seed heads on it, just like the stuff out there did. And it still does. So basically we proved to ourselves, even though the info's out there and says that it works, I just want to do it myself because it's kind of fun. Basically simulated grazing took all of this down to 4 inches tall, and then it grew back up to here and put on a seed head. And now I've cut that in half to kind of simulate grazing, but I just wanted to see what the response is, because the thought process is that if you keep plants vegetative, which this is beyond what I would consider vegetative, it's putting up hollow stems, the nutritive value of this plant has gone down substantially. I'm sure a cow would still eat it, but keeping something vegetative like this is starting to shoot stems, so that's not really vegetative. That over there is probably closer to vegetative than anything. But the idea is, if you keep it vegetative and graze it with proper rest, is that the roots are constantly growing and growing. Living, growing roots put more exudates in the ground, which is basically just feeding bacteria and building soil for you. So, and in the end, the long term, you'll grow more forage for your animals, or if you're wanting to hay or whatever, you'll grow more actual above ground biomass by grazing it properly or mowing it properly. So I was totally surprised this morning when I came out and I looked at this that I had cut. I was just walking by and I looked and I'm like, wow, that's new growth. And I don't know, that's not quite an inch. It's almost an inch. I swear it's grown since I checked it this morning. So that was kind of neat to see that. And then there's more peas. These winter peas. I always like to see the peas growing because that's going to put nitrogen in my ground. This has gotten fairly thick. I mean, a cow would love to eat this, or sheep. A goat likes more woody stuff, but there's plenty to eat right there. So, yeah, that's where we're at on the February 16th, 2018. Again, we're in Central Florida. We have unusually warm temperatures for February. 10 to 12 degrees above normal. Really strange. All the plants think that it's April right now. So, the only part of this that hasn't been mowed, all of this is regrowth out here. The only part that hasn't been mowed is this little biochar section right here, which it's got a way higher amount of brassicas in it, like radish and turnips, just because it hadn't been mowed. When you mow it, it pulls them out of the ground pretty much. But yeah, that's where we're at, February 16th. It's interesting to teach myself about this stuff. It's good to try and get an idea of what kind of forage I can grow here for livestock without having to feed hay, and I'm not going to fertilize, etc., etc. All of this out here is greened up. I mean, it's all greened up, and it's not growing like it would in June, but it's growing. I have no doubt we're going to have more cold weather after this warm spell that we're having is over. It's so strange, but the plan for this coming year is I'll plant a summer mix in here again like I did last year around, probably April, unless this stuff is still growing and there's good forage. It's still growing good, and if I don't have to, I won't. Maybe I'll wait till later. And then what I'm really going to wait for is next year in the fall is planting more oats, but I'm going to plant it early. As soon as the humidity dies down, which usually happens like the end of August, first part of September, I may do it on the whole place too, and if I can find somebody to seed it for me, is put in oats, ryegrass. The ryegrass has done very well in little test spots out in the pasture. My mother just cut around her house. She cut some ryegrass that I put in on Saturday, and she cut it pretty low. It was about 2 inches low, or 2 inches high. And today is Friday. I went down there yesterday, and it had grown 6.5 inches since she mowed it on Saturday. So I'm sure that's due also to uncommonly warm temps, but you couldn't rotationally graze it fast enough if that's all you had in your pasture. Anyway, that's the idea, is to plant a mix. I'm kind of anxious to see what that looks like this coming fall, is when the humidity breaks. Plant at least some oats and a mixture of brassicas and ryegrass, maybe all over the place, all the way across, and we'll see what happens. All right, so that's the update for our cool season cover crops, February 16th. A lot more of these brassicas are starting to flower out now. They're just about, I don't know, I guess they're getting about done. But yeah, that's what we're doing. All right, you guys take care. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.